I can see it.
Super.
Okay, so I have 1 minute according to my clock.
Yeah, perfect. So Jennifer will get us started, and then I'll jump in, and then you can do your bit, and then Becca can do her bit, and then we'll be done.
This is our road show. We've done this a couple of times.
I noticed that Rebecca is self-muted, so do you think she's ready, or? Oh, there she is.
Yeah, I'm ready. I just kept myself muted.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure you were awake.
Yep, I'm here.
Balls. Okay, so I have 10 o'clock. I think it's okay for us probably to get started. And if people join us, in 5-10 minutes, we'll just keep going, and they can type stuff into the chat box if they need to. If they've got technical issues or if they've got questions, and I'll address them. I'll answer them for them. Okay, welcome, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Jennifer Bruin, and I am the project coordinator of the MSU EDA University Center for Regional Economic Innovation. We are located at the MSU Center for Community and Economic Development. The REI University Center is supported by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, and the Michigan State Housing and Development Authority. It was established in the fall of 2011 to support the identification, creation, and development of innovative economic development strategies to yield high-growth entrepreneurship and job creation in distressed regions of Michigan. Each year, REI selects several innovative economic development projects. These projects are led by experts in the field or by faculty at Michigan universities or colleges. And they are supported through small mini-grants to offset any costs associated with completion of the initiatives and or the research. So today, our presenters Rebecca Baylor, Davina Davidson, and Jess Daniel from Food Lab Detroit will present their co-learning plan titled Operation Above Ground, Improving Licensing for New Food Businesses to Promote a Stronger Detroit Food Economy. Their presentation will be a summary on their current research and findings to understand and map the licensing process for shared use kitchens and other alternative models of food businesses. Hopefully, their research will help us to take the first step in removing a significant barrier to the emergence of a more diverse, thriving, healthy, and innovative food economy in Detroit. Jess, are you there and are you ready?
I am here, and I am ready, and so is my team. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for the opportunity. We really appreciate it. We really are excited for this opportunity to share the research that was made possible by the MSU REI program and also by our partners and sponsors at the Kellogg Foundation, at the Detroit Food and Agriculture Network, who is sponsored by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, for our partners at Southwest Detroit Business Association, and the many other entrepreneurs and organizations who have been involved or supportive of this research and this project. So there are 3 of us here today, but really the team for Operation Above Ground is a lot broader than just the 3 presenters. So in our first slide, I'm just going to talk a little bit about who Becca, Davida, and I are representing. So let's see. There we go. So Food Lab Detroit, my name is Jess Daniel. I'm the founder and director of Food Lab Detroit. And Food Lab is a community of food businesses in and around the city of Detroit who are committed to creating a more just, sustainable, and healthy food system in our region. And we have a member network of businesses that's now 96 businesses strong. And of those businesses, we have about 14 of them who are on the Operation Above Ground team who have been working both on this research project and also another wing of the project, which is really around direct technical assistance to entrepreneurs who need help getting through the licensing process for licensing food businesses in Detroit. So our team is representative of those 14 entrepreneurs, but also we've been working very closely with a couple of MDARD inspectors from the Michigan Department of Agriculture who are very involved in licensing, as well as Mike DiBernardo, who is an economic development specialist with the state. And so we just want to thank and appreciate all of them. So I'll let Becca actually introduce herself very quickly.
Hi everyone, my name is Becca Baylor. I've been working as Food Lab Summer Fellow, and I'm also a graduate student at the University of Michigan. My research focuses on the social side of sustainability related initiatives, especially those that strive to create a more sustainable food system. So I've been paired with Food Lab, and I will talk a little bit more about my policy report later on.
Great, thank you, Becca. And Davida, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Davida Davison, and I'm the manager of Food Lab's kind of first catalyzing project that's called Detroit Kitchen Connect. It's a network of shared kitchen spaces where we've taken advantage of dormant, underutilized kitchen spaces in the city of Detroit, and we turn those spaces into essentially incubators or maker spaces for food entrepreneurs who are
Wonderful, thank you both. So the structure of our presentation, I'm going to give a little bit more background on Food Lab and how this Operation Above Ground project came about. Davida will explain a little bit about the structure of Operation Above Ground, and then Becca is really going to take us home with summary of our findings to date. So we'll start with Food Lab. And as I mentioned, we're a community of food businesses in the Metro Detroit area. We have nearly 100 businesses who are part of our network, and we focus around 3 areas. So as you can see, it's our 3 C's: cultivating, connecting, and catalyzing. So what that means is that Food Lab focuses, number 1, on cultivating individual food businesses, helping them to be stronger and helping them to be what we call triple bottom line businesses. So interested, yes, in financial profit, but also in contributing to communities and also in environmental stewardship. We also work to connect these businesses to one another. And that's especially important in Detroit, which is a city where we have many long-time residents who tend to be lower income and tend to be African American. We also have a lot of new folks who are moving into the city who are bringing energy, bringing social resources, bringing financial capital, but aren't always connected into the same networks or social networks as many of the long-time entrepreneurs. And so we work very hard to connect across those kinds of social, cultural, and economic barriers, as well as connect all of our entrepreneurs to the resources they need to succeed. And then the final piece of what we do, and this relates to Operation Above Ground, is once we have a very solid community of businesses and entrepreneurs who share common values and really trust one another, we catalyze projects that benefit the entire community of businesses, because there are often projects that one entrepreneur cannot tackle alone. And so one of the things that we found, and Davida will go into this into more detail, is that many of our businesses were having a lot of trouble actually making their businesses legal. So when we did a survey of our business members, almost 50% of our businesses were still operating in the underground or gray market economy. So what that means is that maybe they're selling barbecue out of barbershop, maybe they're on the side of the road, maybe they are doing catering for people at their church, but they don't actually operate out of a licensed space. They may not pay taxes, and therefore, they are able to make some income, but that income is limited because also limited because if we don't have businesses that are growing and doing things like contributing to our taxes here in the city, it's not necessarily helping the whole. And what we found is that it's not that people are trying to operate under their radar because they're trying to hide anything. It's really that the process for becoming legitimate or going, as we say, above ground was just so difficult, so onerous, and very non-transparent. And so every year in November, our business members vote on an annual community goal. And last November, our members voted that what they wanted to focus on over the next year was to try to improve the licensing process for our businesses, for businesses in our network and then beyond. And that was kind of the impetus and the starting point for Operation Above Ground. So this slide just shows a little bit of the color of Food Lab. So we have social events like the picnic you see on the bottom. Our members are meeting with Senator Stabenow, that's April Anderson in the middle, who's one of the entrepreneurs who works at Detroit Kitchen Connect. We host workshops. And then up there in the top middle was last year's membership meeting where folks actually voted on working on this Operation Above Ground goal. So now we'll get a little bit into the meat of the actual research and project.
Thanks, Jess. This is Kavita Davison, and I wanted to go a little bit into detail in terms of how Operation Above Ground not only came to be, but the structure and the methodology on how we carried out Operation Above Ground at the very beginning. So, as Jess has already mentioned, in November of last year, Food Lab members gathered together at our annual membership meeting and decided as a community that we were going to tackle the licensing process in the city of Detroit. And in my slide, you'll see that at that time in 2013, we were 65 members when we met. As Jess has indicated, we are almost 100 members now. So that really goes to show that Food Lab is a growing organization. So we got together and we decided as a community that our goal in this year was going to be to work together to tackle the licensing process in the city of Detroit. And so we got together and we decided here were our 3 goals. Number 1, we wanted to ensure that all of the founding members, 65 members, who wished to grow their business and to become what we call above ground and legitimate, we wanted to make sure that they were armed with the process and the procedures of how to go about doing that. And how did we do that? Our second goal was that we wanted to map the current licensing process as it currently stands. And then we wanted to also get agreement and partnership and buy-in from our 2 licensing authorities, our local health department, which is the Institution for Population Health, and of course MDARD, the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. And so we wanted to get the partnership and buy-in of those 2 organizations. And then last but not least, we really wanted to push to make the process fair. And what we mean by fair, we wanted to make sure that the fee structure to operate what we call some of these alternative or new business models were possible. So those were our goals. And so we were very cognizant at the very beginning that taking on this goal, it was much bigger than just the city of Detroit. With the help of, just indicated, Mike DiBernardo, who's an economic development specialist, we clearly understood that not only is this great for the city of Detroit to make sure the licensing process is more transparent, it's easier to navigate, but if Detroit could lead in this process, be a leader in the state as the largest city in the state of Michigan, we can also adopt this model and take it to other places in the state as well. And at the end of the day, what it does is it supports our state's initiative, which is the Michigan Good Food Charter, that by 2020, we want to enable businesses that they are using 20% of the food grown and purchased in the state of Michigan. And by helping businesses, food businesses in particularly, come above ground, have access to those resources, start locally sourcing their product, we knew that together with Detroit and other cities in the state, we could do that. So there are a couple of things that we needed to do to achieve this goal, right? Because there's a circle within the food system. There are a couple of things that we did. We consulted with MDARD inspectors at the very beginning because we wanted to make sure that we were creating a licensing guide to help our entrepreneurs know step by step what the process is. So we went straight to the experts. We went to the MDARD inspectors and they sat with us and they worked with us to create a licensing guide. The second thing we wanted to do was we wanted to get buy-in from our local health department. And why is that so important? Because MDARD only licenses those food businesses who create what we call shelf-stable or packaged product. If you are a caterer or if you're preparing food for what we call immediate consumption, you are licensed through your local health department. So it's very important that we got buy-in from the local health departments, especially for those caterers or those entrepreneurs who were looking at opening up food establishments, food trucks, and etc. So we initially had a meeting with our local health department to, again, map out that licensing process, getting buy-in, making sure that the communication that we were giving our members were indeed accurate. The third thing we did, we wanted to make sure that we also got buy-in and support from our city council members. So we've had the opportunity over the last year now to actually sit down and speak with city council members to champion our cause all the way up to the mayor's office. And we have folks in the city council who are very supportive of what we're doing with Operation Above Ground, and they too want to make sure that the licensing process for food businesses is more transparent and easy to navigate. The third thing we did is we had the pleasure of sitting down with Jamie Clover Adams, who's the MDARD Deputy Director. Again, it is very important when you are trying to push or change or suggest policy recommendations, as Rebecca will get into, that you also get buy-in from our local and appointed officials. They are here to help. We wanted to partner with them as allies and not adversaries. And then last but not least, just recently, Jess, myself, and Rebecca had the opportunity to sit down with the Institution of Populations Health Deputy Director. So again, all of this making sure that we include everybody in the process to get buy-in, to get support, and to create allyship with our very, very important partners. So what's the objective? What is it that we wanted to do? Again, our first and our primary goal is to understand the process. And how do you do that? Well, we wanted to research what the process currently was, and then we wanted to map it out visually to make it easily understood by all. And there were a couple of models that we were going to tackle. Number one, catering and permanent food establishment like restaurants, cafes, delis, etc. Food trucks, or something we call mobile vending, STFUs. The third thing is shared use kitchens. And then the last one is something that we call pop-ups or non-traditional food establishment. So for the purpose of this webinar, we're really going to focus in on shared use kitchen. And so why shared use kitchen? Why is that so important? Well, as I introduced myself at the very beginning of the webinar, I said that I was the manager of Detroit Kitchen Connect, which is a flagship program and a partnership between Food Lab Detroit and Eastern Market. Because one of the things that we do know, as Jess has already indicated, there is a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. There's a lot of creativity. There are a lot of folks in Detroit who want to create food businesses, who are already selling food but doing it in a gray market. And to help individuals come above ground, as we say, so they can legalize their business, they have to have a place that in which to create their product. And so for a very long time, before Detroit Kitchen Connect was in existence, a lot of our members and folks in the Detroit community, they were traveling, sometimes 2 and 3 hours to shared use kitchen spaces or kitchen incubators outside of the Detroit region. And we knew, because we heard from our entrepreneurs, that shared use kitchen spaces was something that they wanted, it was something that they needed, and it was something that Food Lab was going to wrap their arms around and tackle that problem. And we did. And so Detroit Kitchen Connect is that solution. And we also know that shared use kitchen spaces, they nurture those homegrown enterprises, and that they're more likely, when you have businesses that are starting in the city of Detroit, locally owned businesses, they're more likely to employ local residents. they're more likely to purchase from other small businesses, thereby helping to grow the local wealth, the local economy in the city of Detroit. And you're talking about a neighborhood, or you're talking about a city where that traditionally, those dollars traditionally have been extracted by those who did not live in our neighborhood. So shared use kitchen spaces was really a focus for us. In Detroit, and you'll see one of our team leads, her name is Amanda, and Jess talked about how, yes, Rebecca, myself, and Jess are here on this webinar, but there are so many people behind us who really has made this project what we call a success. And so Amanda Brewington, one of our team leads, she's wearing a t-shirt here in the city of Detroit, and we say, be the change you want to see. And so Detroit and the people in Detroit and the members of Food Lab, Detroit specifically, we are going under the assumption that if we want change, we as the citizens, as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have to push for change, right? So there are a couple of things that we've done to try to make that happen, to try to push for change, is that we have team leads, as Jess indicated, who are already licensed, by the way. 50% of our members were already licensed, but because their process was so arduous, was so difficult, was so non-transparent, they didn't want their other Food Lab members to go through that same process. So they stood up and they said, I will become a team lead. I will reach out to our entrepreneurs and members because I don't want them to go through the same process that I had to go through. So what do? They host office hours. They provide direct technical one-on-one assistance for startup businesses who are looking for the support and the information on how to navigate the current licensing process. What are some other things that we're doing, being the change we want to see in the city of Detroit? Well, we're working to create what we call an easy-to-understand informational guide, or some folks refer to it as an infographic. And we're working with graphic designers to also translate that into Spanish as well, because we want to make sure, because we know that Detroit and its metropolitan area is extremely diverse, and food is really a cultural connection. So we want to make sure that those neighborhoods who really have a connection to food because of their cultural and ethnic tradition, that they too have the opportunity and the resources and the information in their native language to understand how to navigate the process. The third thing we do, well, we work not only with our members one-on-one, but we host workshops and we host meetings with the community. Community engagement is very important to us. So we do have workshops where we partner with other organizations, where we are also evangelizing our work to help others in the community as well, to get them engaged, and to also listen, and to also hear their concerns, what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and to bring them on board, to educate them on what we're doing, and to invite them to become a part of what we're doing. And then last but not least, and this is where Rebecca will jump in, is we wanted to create a white paper. All the research we've been doing and all of the office hours we have been holding, all the workshops that we have been facilitating, those things are documented. We have an interaction report. Every time we meet with or we talk to one of our licensing authorities, or we sit down and we talk to an entrepreneur, we're documenting those concerns. We're making notations. And from that, we were able to distill that information, and that is how we came up with the policy recommendations that Rebecca is going to talk about, right? So what is our methodology? How do we do this? What was the process? And I'll wrap it up by saying this. Here's how we did it. We had to organize. We had to form team leads, small committees. Each team group, or each small group with a team lead, was responsible for a different kind of business model. There was a team lead that was in charge of shared use kitchens. There was a team that was in charge of pop-ups or non-traditional food establishment. There was a team that was in charge of catering and food establishment. We had to digest it and break it down in small groups. What is another thing? Next step, we had to research. Okay? We had to understand the licensing issues, and then we had to go through the procedures of surveying and calling and reaching out to all of our members to hear their concerns and to make sure that they understood the procedure. Then we had to do what we call the discovery process. After we found out all of the information and we were able to document it, we wanted to make it easy and digestible, so we wanted to create what we call maps or infographics. How are we doing that? We're doing that through design. We're taking good information, information that has been verified, and we're taking that information that can sometimes be scary, folks don't understand it, but we're working with the designer to take good information with great graphics by working with the designer so that folks can easily understand it and digest it. And then the last thing we're doing is we have to educate, right? We have to educate other food businesses, and we do that through one-on-one consultations and through office hours. And then last but not least is that once you've done the work, once you've done the research, once you have all the materials in place, you've got to mobilize and you've got to engage. And that is when we've gotten with our officials, elected and appointed officials, to engage them in the process to deliver real policy changes that we do believe are possible. And Rebecca, I'm going to go ahead and let you jump in and talk about some of those policy changes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so as Jess and Davita mentioned, I've been working with Food Lab as their summer fellow, and what I've really been tasked with is creating a policy recommendation report. This report is a culmination of a variety of different data sets from a variety of different sources. I use survey data collected from entrepreneurs and Detroit businesses in Detroit, and I aggregated that with different reports on shared use kitchens that have been published elsewhere in other cities. And I've also conducted some in-depth interviews with shared use kitchen stakeholders and operators. For instance, I spoke with Ron Steiner, who is the owner and operator of Michigan's first shared use kitchen. So I really used a lot of information to conduct this research and create this policy recommendation report. And the purpose of the report, it has two main objectives. The first goal is to improve licensing policy for food businesses that are operating out of shared use kitchens, especially those that need to be licensed by IPH. So that's the first goal, to improve licensing policy for businesses. The second goal is to strengthen the use of shared use kitchens as a resource, not only for entrepreneurial expansion, but also for economic development in neighborhoods and for local food processing, so that food can not only be grown in Detroit, but made and processed in Detroit as well. So within the report, I highlighted many benefits of shared use kitchens. Specifically, there are 4 reasons that I give, and the reasons are listed here on the PowerPoint, and the bullets on this page also highlight some of the specific benefits that I highlight. So shared use kitchens benefit Detroit by expanding the economy. Oops. And you can go ahead and switch to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So Detroit's shared use kitchens, they really benefit Detroit by expanding the economy. Each year, Detroiters spend on approximately $200 million buying groceries outside of Detroit to presumably be eaten in Detroit. And shared use kitchens can help eliminate this large amount of financial leakage by creating jobs for food businesses that want to sell their product in retail markets, allowing Detroiters to buy more food in Detroit. The second benefit listed here is that shared use kitchens benefit not only local but regional business. They meet the market need for local food processors, and as Jess said, local food businesses they source their food from local growers, but they also source their other products locally. For instance, small businesses and businesses that use shared use kitchen seek out local suppliers for packaging and other products. For these businesses, sourcing locally just makes good business sense, and therefore benefiting regional business. Another benefit of shared use kitchens, and another reason why we should support them, that are highlighted in this recommendation report, is that shared use kitchens encourage entrepreneurialism. Many of these businesses using these spaces, using shared use kitchens, are cottage food businesses, businesses that have used the Michigan Cottage Food Law as a stepping stone to create a viable business and a viable entrepreneurial enterprise. And after they've used the Cottage Food Law, after they become a successful business, they seek out shared use kitchens to scale up their production and diversify their products to a healthier range of products. So that's another major benefit. And lastly, shared use kitchens are beneficial because they contribute to Detroit communities. These kitchens are created from existing community assets. These kitchens are often refurbished kitchens that have been lying dormant in Detroit communities. And it's beneficial beneficial to Detroit communities in that respect. And they also extend the excitement and the innovation which currently exists in the city of Detroit to Detroit's neighborhoods where most of these entrepreneurs live. So that's just several of the benefits that are talked about within the report, and definitely go into more depth within the report. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about with you guys today are two types of policy recommendations that exist within the report. And they're listed here. The first type of recommendation, these recommendations really aim to improve the relationship between IPH and shared use kitchen stakeholders. Right now, there's not really a culture of collaboration or an open line of communication between IPH, the local licensing agency, and shared use kitchen operators or shared use kitchen businesses. And so for this reason, one of our first policy recommendations made within the report urges IPH to remove its $150 consultation fee. Davida spoke briefly early on about wanting to work with IPH and getting their buy-in. Well, unfortunately, the case is that on several occasions, IPH has expressed a policy where they are charging $150 per hour consultation fee to both businesses and shared use kitchen stakeholders. They're charging this fee just to talk with them about the licensing process. So what you have going on is businesses are not able to talk to IPH, and it's really preventing businesses from understanding the step-by-step process that they need to go through to get licensed. It's really, this is where Food Lab has stepped in so that businesses can understand their licensing process. And this $150 consultation fee not only prevents businesses from talking with IPH, it prevents other shared use kitchen stakeholders like Food Lab from talking with IPH and collaborating with them. So one of the other recommendations made within the report is to expand this collaboration and create a working relationship by writing up collaboratively a Memorandum of Understanding, or an MOU, between IPH and Food Lab, so that mutual goals can be established and that mutual benefits that result from shared use kitchens successfully operating can also be established. So there's that. And so that's the first type of recommendation. The second type of recommendations that exist within the report really strive to encourage IPH to adopt policies which have been successfully implemented by other licensing agencies in Michigan. These other licensing agencies include both MDARD, the Michigan Department of Agriculture, and also other local health departments. And right now, current internal policies at IPH are overly restrictive and do not necessarily reflect other successful policies which have been implemented elsewhere by MDARD and these other agencies. For example, IPH currently restricts businesses from operating simultaneously but separately in kitchens. And simultaneous operation or simultaneous use is something that has been successfully implemented elsewhere. It's a common occurrence, but we've had a case in Detroit where IPH does not allow businesses to operate simultaneously, and they also charge really expensive fees for licensing. And what policies like this do is they prevent certain businesses, for instance cottage food businesses, from scaling up their production. They restrict the number of businesses that are able to be licensed out of a shared use kitchen. They restrict entrepreneurial innovation in that sense because of these policies that aren't really followed or preceded by precedent elsewhere. So we've encouraged IPH to lower some of these fees and to allow shared use kitchens to have two businesses operating out of them simultaneously. So, and that's really what these policies strive to do, is they strive to make Detroit a viable place to start a successful business, a viable place for a successful shared kitchen network. They support business growth for local food businesses, and again, they really strive to create a successful network of shared use kitchens, as we have seen not only in other cities in Detroit or other cities in Michigan, but other cities throughout the United States where other policies have been implemented. And that's really all that I have for today. I wanted to wrap it up by thanking you all for listening, thanking our supporters, both on behalf of myself and Food Lab.
Nice job.
Wonderful, thanks. I think we're going to wrap it up.
Go ahead, Jess.
Oh no, I was just going to say we'll wrap it up, and Davida and I just wanted to say thank you, and we're signing off. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I wanted to make a plug here, though, for your summit presentation. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the program, but please do, and let us know if the time is okay for your presentation, and if we've missed any details in the summaries or the bios. Just let us know. I think that you might have gotten a much earlier draft, so I can send you a more current one and you can take a peek at it. But I encourage you to do that just so there aren't any surprises. And then we're looking forward to it. I mean, we're going to start sharing this link to this webinar, and we'll get back to you as far as any final details on the summit.
Great. Yep, we're excited. And the last time I saw the timing, it looked great. But if you have updates, that would be super.
Yeah, I think we've stuck with the same times, whatever we shared with you. We don't want to confuse people.
Okay, but yeah, if you have any updated materials, I'd love to see them.
Okay, nice job.
Thanks a lot. Bye, Jennifer.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye, guys.